Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to the channel. In this micro lesson, I wanted to talk about how to compose rememberable guitar part lines. It might even be considered a hack to do this. It's going to employ two very simple techniques. That's common chord tones and repetition. Let's grab a guitar and we'll get started. So the starting point for this hack is very simple. Identify the chord progression that you're playing over. In this case here, I'm going to be playing over a D, A, B minor to a G. A very common chord progression. It's the 1, 5, 6 minor 4 chord progression. Lots of times as guitarists we sit and we'll fiddle around and use our ears to find parts, and that's all great, but sometimes a very easy step that you can do is actually just write out your chord progression. So at the bottom I wrote down the chord progression that I just talked about, the D, A, G, and B. And then on top of those I wrote down all of the chord tones that make up each individual chord. And then I did a very simple thing. I started to circle notes that kept appearing in the different chords in the progression. Those are our common chord tones. So what do we have? Well, let's look at this. We have D as our first chord. So we have D, F sharp, and A. And then we have our A chord, and we have A, C sharp, and E. Then we have our B minor chord, and we have B, D, F sharp. And then we have our G chord, G, B, and D. Did you notice I said a D a lot of times there? That's a very, very common chord tone inside of all of these chords. So why don't we base some lines simply around that note? The other ones that kept popping up a lot, well, we have a common chord tone between the F sharp in the D chord and the F sharp in the B minor chord. And that's no surprise. That's our B minor, here's our D. There's no surprise there because that's kind of the relative minor of the D chord, the B minor is. So that's very simple, that's very nice to have. We also have that same B note that's in the B minor and the G. So that's another common chord tone. Anyway, the exercise is very simple. Just write those down and then start to kind of create some lines around those common chord tones. So let's go ahead and play some guitar part lines that center around that D note, since that was the most common in all of these chords. What did you notice about that? Well, the chords are doing all the heavy lifting. It's making that part sound unique every single time it comes around, even though you're playing the same notes. Why is that? Because again, you're using these common chord tones and repetition. So all you're doing is just fiddling those same notes, but the chords are changing underneath it, which means the value of those notes or the flavor of those notes are changing with every single chord change. So repetition here is our friend too, because it's what really grabs the listener and lets them latch onto something that you're playing, because you're playing it over and over again. But it doesn't sound boring. Why again? Because those chords underneath it are constantly changing. So let's try the same thing again, but now try to do more like a lead line type of thing, or something that you might incorporate in a solo. Again, the same principle applies here. The listener's getting hooked into that line. It's even something that they can sing along with if they wanted to, but it sounds unique every time the chord changes underneath it. So let me go ahead and combine both of those ideas, playing over the track once more. And this way we can just hear the contrast between the two, but yet they're similar again because we're playing around that D note. I'm going to do is leave in the description below a link where you can download this track for free if you want to practice along with it. But if you don't have this track, that's not a big deal. Create your own chord progression. And again, the steps are very simple. Write out that chord progression, write out all the notes that make up those chords, and then circle the most common ones, and then just try to come up with lines that repeat themselves around the most common chord tones. Well, Nash is excited, another micro lesson down. If you made it this far in the video, I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and I hope you found some value in it. And if you did, would you do me a favor? Would you consider helping me grow the channel by subscribing down below, hit the like button, and knock on the bell? All these things really do help me out, and I'm so grateful for your support. As always, I wish you a fantastic day.